The number of new listings, sales, and average sales price were all trending up for the month of March, which is to be expected as we head into traditionally the busiest selling season of the year, which is our spring market. But the real question is this the calm before the storm? And is the spring market going to get really crazy this year? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, my name is Demetres Giannitsos. I'm a real estate agent here in Toronto, and I like to make videos on the Toronto real estate market. If at any point you're watching this, you want to get in touch with me, ask me any questions about the market or your real estate plans, I've left a link down in the description below where you can book a call directly in my calendar and we can have a chat. If you're not ready to book a call and you just want to browse properties online, I've left the best tool that I've found that I personally use and I give all my clients. I've left a download link to that tool down below. It's got some really good search features. It's got an algorithm that'll show you properties that you're interested in, and it's got sold data, everything you need. So I've left the download link for that down below. Finally, if you're liking this content, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're looking for more up-to-date updates on the real estate market, make sure you follow me on Instagram. I always post on my stories, and I've even got a broadcast channel where I post what I'm feeling and what I'm seeing on the market up to date, real time. Okay, with that being said, let's get into it. So as I mentioned earlier, the amount of new listings, the amount of sales, and the average sales price all increased on a month-over-month basis. So basically comparing February 2024 to March 2024. So that's kind of to be expected. We're heading into spring. Things typically do heat up. So nothing really to note there. And the increases were, fairly small. Nothing really to note. But like I said, the question that most people have is, hey, what can we expect for this spring market? Are things going to heat up the same way that they did last year? If we're going to try to figure out what could happen this year, I think it makes a whole lot more sense to actually look at the year over year statistics rather than the month over the month. So basically comparing where we are today versus where we were exactly 1 year ago heading into last year's spring market and comparing the numbers. So that's where I like to flip over to this chart right here. So this chart's going to show us the year over year summary for the amount of sales, the amount of new listings, active listings, and the average sales price. So starting with the average sales price, we've seen an increase from this time last year to now of 1.3% on average, okay, which is actually pretty crazy when you think about it. We're seeing the highest interest rates in decades, and we still saw an average price growth of 1.3%. So, 1.3% is obviously pretty negligible, but like if there was ever a time where you thought that the real estate market was going to take a really big hit, you would think it would be with super high interest rates, which we are seeing. And this kind of speaks to, the resilience and how much demand there is in our market. And it really kind of makes me think like, okay, if we're going to see a 1.3% increase with, 6-7% interest rates, what are we going to see when interest rates come back down to 3 or 4%, right? So pretty interesting to note that. Now going into the sales, okay, sales are down 4.5% from where they were this time last year. Okay, I mean, is that relevant? 4.5%. There's not a whole lot to talk about there. Pretty much the same, maybe a little bit less. Okay, got it. New listings are up 15%. So there is 15% more new listings coming to the market now than there were this time last year. And when it comes to active listings, these are how many properties are on the market, basically how much inventory is out there. There is 23% more active listings on the market than there were this time last year. So naturally, you would think that, hey, we got more listings on the market. It's going to be a little bit of a cooler spring market. It won't be as intense as it was last year. And I think that there definitely is some truth to that, but it gets a little bit more complicated than that, because when we look at the 22% of active listings that are added to the market, we really want to dive into where those listings are coming from, because they're not really spread evenly throughout all property types. So I pulled up this chart right here to kind of see where the added inventory is coming from. And I noticed that if we look at CO1 right here and CO8, which is right here, there's 3.8 and 4.3 months of inventory in those two pockets. So for those of you who don't know, CO1, CO8 are basically the better part of downtown, which is where most of the condos are. Most of the properties in these two sections are condos. So this is telling me that there is a lot of condos on the market. And just knowing from like my experience working in the condo market right now, I know that there's a ton of investors that are looking to sell their property. So I actually took it one step further and went to the CO1 and CO8 areas to see how many condos are listed on the market. I made a minimum of 150,000 just to knock out any parking spots, and we got 1,927 condos that are listed. Okay. Now the interesting part of this is if we go occupancy and we go vacant. So this is properties that have nobody living in them. There's 875. And then if we add tenanted, now there is 1,415 condos. So out of the 1,900 roughly condos that are on the market in CO1 and CO8, 1,400 of them are either vacant or tenanted, which tells me that for the most part, those are investor condos. So 75% of the active listings that are downtown right now are likely investor owned. So you're probably wondering, Dimitri, why do I care? Why are you showing me all this? What does it matter? Well, I said earlier that we have 22% more active listings on the market. And looking at this, I think a big portion of those 22% are coming from the condo market, more specifically investor-owned condos. So a lot of times investors are going to be buying the small 1 bedrooms, the small 2 bedrooms, and are these necessarily the homes that you want to be living in? So really what I'm getting at is if you're wondering what the spring market is going to do, it's going to be very dependent on what type of property it is that you are looking for. If you're looking for a detached home or a freehold home that has no condo fees or no nothing, chances are it's going to be very competitive. There's not a ton of inventory. And even though we are seeing, 22% more listings on the market, I would still expect prices to rise. And on the flip side, if you're looking for a condo specifically in downtown, I think that this is going to be a very gettable time to actually get a really good condo for a fair price. I don't see prices or pressure going up the same way that they did on condos this same time last year where we were holding back offers on everything. I know even, my listings that I had this time last year, we were holding offer dates even on the condos and we were getting multiple offers and selling for really good prices. I don't see that coming. And of course, this all hinges on the Bank of Canada's next rate announcement, which is April 10th. So in 6 days, we're going to find out, what the Bank of Canada decides to do, whether they decide to hold the rate or whether they actually decrease the rate. And now, even though, increasing or decreasing the rate by 0.25% or 0.5% doesn't really change anything in terms of affordability. What it does do is change the market sentiment and how people feel about the market. And I know this is true because last year around this same time, the Bank of Canada had multiple increases in a row heading into the spring market. And March 8th, 2023, they actually paused rates. They held it at 4.5%. And I remember my phone blowing up over the next 2 or 3 days with people who are like, hey, I feel like this is as high as interest rates are going to go. This is the bottom of the market. Let's get in. Let's bind somewhere. And it really changed how people felt about the market. And we did see a steep increase in the prices over the spring. So could this be the calm before the storm? It actually might be. If they decide to decrease rates, I think things could get pretty crazy. But just to show you how much, these announcements actually play a factor, even if we look at the TREB news release and they're expecting what is going to happen from the markets. Now, this isn't my words. These are the experts, the economists, the ones who predict what will happen. They say that price growth is expected to accelerate during the spring and even more so in the second half of the year as sales growth catches up with listings growth and sellers' market conditions start to emerge in many neighborhoods. Lower borrowing costs in the months ahead will help fuel increased demand of ownership and housing. Now, when they're saying lower borrowing costs, they are talking about interest rates coming down. So as everybody is kind of predicting that interest rates will come down in the summer, they are expecting a very strong end of 2024. So what does that mean for you? If you are a buyer and you're looking for a freehold property, I think that this spring we are going to see more listings come up as we typically do in the spring. And if rates come down in the summer, I think that things could get even tighter. And if what they predict is going to happen, it looks like the freehold market is going to get even crazier. So I would say spring might be your best chance to see the most amount of listings and have the competition spread out amongst the most amount of properties, and might be your best chance. It's still going to be competitive. You're still going to run into competing offers for most properties, but it still might be your best chance to get in before things get really crazy after they decide to decrease rates. If they decide to decrease rates, okay? Now, in terms of the condo market, I think that the spring, again, is going to bring a lot of listings. I think I know even with my clients, I've got a lot of listings coming up this spring. And I think for anybody who's looking to get into the condo market, this is going to be a really good opportunity where you're going to be able to find some, desperate sellers, some distressed sales, and get some really good deals. And on the flip side, if you're a seller, specifically in the freehold market, you own a house, townhouse, semi-detached, I mean, you've got what everybody is looking for. So, you're really in a power position here. It's going to really depend on what you plan on doing. If you plan on selling and then buying something else is going to really dictate when the best time to sell is for you. At that point right now, I would say go find what you're looking for and you can put your home on the market confidently and sell after. If you're selling a condo, I think it's really important that you just look at the comparables, be realistic, be patient. They're not flying off the shelf as they used to, I guess you could say. If you have a good condo, it's set up, it's staged, and it's priced well, it will sell and it will sell quickly. But just know that you might be running into some competing listings in your building, in your area, and you'll have to really monitor those to make sure that you stay competitive. So I hope that helps give you an idea as to what's going on here in the spring market and for the rest of 2024. Really, I mean, is this the calm before the storm? We're going to find out on April 10th. I mean, if they decide to lower rates, I think it could get pretty stormy. If they decide to hold the rates, I think that, we're going to see a slight increase in freehold properties month over month. Condos will keep chugging along, and then we'll have to wait to see if they actually do decrease rates in the summertime, at which point, if they do, I think that the end of 2024 could get pretty competitive. So let me know what you think down below. Really curious to hear your comments. Of course, always make sure you like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you on the next video.